Athletes, welcome back for another episode. This one is a little bit different. It's going to be a slightly shorter episode. I'm going to test these, see how you guys like them. This one is on stop people pleasing, why high performers set ruthless boundaries. Why high performers set ruthless boundaries. This one is one that I would imagine you probably need to hear. And what I'm thinking of doing is I'm going to pepper in amongst the longer educational episodes little nuggets of wisdom and mentality. Because you and I both know you can have all the tactics. We can talk about Braverman tests and brain chemistry and blood work all day long. But if you are an uber people pleaser, bending over backwards, breaking your back, getting resentful, getting spiteful, burning yourself out, does it really matter? Does it really work? And so I say this because I would tell you that your ability to navigate your relationships in a constructive, productive way is a huge part of your long-term success, or lack thereof. And obviously, it's something that most people are challenged with. You know, I'm a reformed people pleaser. And at times, I will say there's little flickers of it where I notice that I did something. And I'm like, there's that old familiar face. I remember you. So I say this because I've been there. I'm more of a introverted empath. And so a lot of the state that I put myself in is intentional. That's why I'm such a fanatic about energy. Because you and I both know that if you're more of an introverted empath, to have a lot of energy to interact with people and communicate and show up, you really have to have your T's crossed and your I's dotted, because you will burn out really hard and fast. And I would say that this ties into episode 15 around burnout. So fundamentally, if you find yourself burning out a lot, and I'm going to tell you what that looks like in a second, so because you might not even know what that even really looks like. This is part of why. So there's probably going to be things that I say that maybe in some ways are subconscious. You're not even seeing them. And this might illuminate some of it to you. And I'm going to obviously give you some tools and tactics and ways to think about this stuff. So anytime you listen to one of these episodes, you feel like you got something tangible. It's not just a pep talk. It's not just a bunch of philosophy. There's some practical tactics tied to that philosophical rambling. Now, what I find for people that struggle with boundaries and struggle to communicate, just like struggle with leadership. And a lot of you guys, this might be relevant. You know, if you are someone that is running a business or you're working with other people, you know, you're going to have to learn how to navigate boundaries with people. Because one of the things that I've come to realize is that if you don't have clear boundaries with everyone around you, they will basically bring their frame to the party. So if we're thinking of like your personality and the way that the energy that you enter the room with as a frame, like a framework, whoever has the dominant frame in the room, that will be the frame that sort of sets the tone, sets the standard. And if you are very passive and you don't have a clear frame, you will find that you keep defaulting to just absorbing everyone else's frame, and that's very often why you feel burned out, because you're doing a bunch of stuff that's not in alignment with your nervous system, that's not in alignment with your energy, that drains the heck out of you. And I'm going to tell you why this is so important. But in terms of people pleasing, in terms of boundaries, you'll find that people that struggle with this, they get sick more often, colds and flus, just little things. You know, it's the people that get colds all the time. If they get the common flus quite often. It's the people that maybe get digestive issues. You know, the digestion is very sensitive. Part of your digestion being sensitive is that your nervous system is more and more unregulated or more and more strained. It's almost like your body's sending a signal, hey, like we need to work on this more. And so there's biofeedback responses. And it even comes back to like the quality of your sleep. If you find you're not sleeping well. So if you find you're not sleeping well, if you find that your mood is up and down, you feel anxious a lot of the time, if you feel like your digestion's sensitive, if you just feel like you're not recovering from workouts very well, it takes you a while to recover, you just feel sore and achy. All of that stuff comes back to strain on your nervous system, which comes back to you more than likely needing to set clear boundaries with people to be a better leader. Think about this in terms of leadership. This is going to make you a better leader. It will make you a better husband, spouse, wife, mother, a better leader. And it's how you need to be to get to the next level of your life. So, in terms of boundaries, in terms of people pleasing, in terms of communication skills, one of the things that I love that I had this conversation with one of my friends a number of years ago. It stuck with me. Early on, as I started to climb the rungs of the ladder, I found that I was working with more and more type A entrepreneurial guys. I've got my ladies in the tribe. I love my ladies. They're all hard working and kick butt. But a lot of the guys that I was seeming to that were gravitating towards me, were your sort of type A business owner personality types with that strong personality, that strong will, that sort of bravado. And obviously, as someone who is more of an introverted empath, that type of personality, it can feel quite strained. Just being around that energy. We all know people like this. Maybe you are kind of like this. You're just kind of hard-headed, you're strong-willed, you know what you want, you push, you bulldoze your way towards goals, right? And even if that's not you, that's okay, because there's lots of examples of like other areas that this will apply. But what I found was that I kept saying to my friend, I kept saying to him, I feel like I've got to keep bending over backwards and keep making exceptions to my rules and keep getting on the phone and keep being, respond to emails quickly, and, they need me to do something, so I've got to pump the brakes and stop what I'm doing and go put out fires because they need me to do it right now, because they live in that world. They live in that world of firefighting and reactivity. And my friend said to me, he's like, look, man, look at the life you have with your health. Look at the life you have with your psychology. Look at the life you have with your family. Like, they come to you because they want that. They see how much you're connecting with your family. They see you exploring the world. We were traveling around in an RV, exploring and just figuring out, where do we want to live? They see you doing all this stuff. They see you out in nature. They see you healthy and active. They want that. They want to be that superhero in their wives' eyes. They want to be that superhero in their children's eyes. They want the financial success, but they realize that it's come at a cost, because a lot of these guys are like fat Ferrari owners. They have some money, but they've just basically burned the candle at both ends to achieve it. And so they're super stressed. They're overweight. Their lymphatic system is backed up. They're all puffy. Their blood pressure's high. They're not sleeping well. And you and I both know that when someone is in that place, they are not showing up as the best spouse or parent they could be. Absolutely not. You're just not. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. I think it's important to just acknowledge that, not beat yourself up about it, but you cannot just keep living in that state of denial. Now, what he said to me was, they come to you because they see the result you want. If you bend over backwards and you just be a performing circus baboon for them, are they going to get your result, or are they going to get more of the result they're already getting? Because they come to you for your result. So that means that they need to start operating within your frame more. Because if they bring their dysregulated, discombobulated energy to the relationship, that's going to proliferate more of their crappy results. So you need to be carefrontational, and you have a moral responsibility to bring your frame to the party to give them the result that they paid for. Man. And I was like, holy crap. If that's not true, I don't know what is. And so from that day, a number of years ago, I always remind myself of that. Like, I have a moral responsibility. You have an obligation to your people to help them reorganize their routines and their life more, if they're open to it, to give them a better quality of life, to help them more. And often that means being carefrontational. You care enough to bring a confrontational conversation to the light and frame it in a constructive way. Like, hey man, what I'm about to say to you, like, you may struggle with this, and maybe you won't, but I want to share this with you because I care. And so this is what I'm observing. And there's a couple of ways I want to talk about the need for boundaries. I want to talk about what it looks like and actually how you can actually do some of this. So I came from that place of like bending over backwards, being reactive. People, what I find in the business world in general, people are very reactive. They're very used to doing things the old way. And often, to me, the old way does not make sense. You know, people just want to get on calls all day long. Like, hey man, can we get you up on a call? And I will tell you that almost always, a call's not even needed. It could be literally 1 or 2 sentences, text to me or you, and you can literally respond right then. And so initially I was burning myself out because I would end up getting on all these calls and they would just be a chinwag festival. It's just like a bunch of talking about the talking and planning about the planning, because I wasn't clear on my own frame. You know, I wasn't even clear about what I'm doing. And so what I realized was that I needed to be very, very intentional with how I dialogue with people. And so now I will even say to people, hey, let me know what you need help with. Drop it in a few sentences here, and I'll let you know if I can help you. Because I realized that for me to get to the next level and for me to actually enjoy my day, it meant that I did not want to be on the phone all day. And so that's for me personally. Now, if you're an introvert like me, you don't really enjoy being on the phone. So that's part of why I did it. So part of what you see when I'm coaching people, anyone who's in my tribe, you know, I'll drop voice messages, do the morning mindset messages in Telegram every day. And I'll often do quick Facebook Lives in the mastermind groups. And I'll do the weekly calls with you guys. And for my one-on-one students, we have some direct messaging access where I will have little bits of verbal communications back and forth. But very, very rarely do I do calls. And part of it is I found that I didn't want to look at my schedule and it be like jam-packed with all these exchanges that I felt weren't actually that useful. And to be honest with you, as a practitioner now at my level, most of them aren't useful. It's just force of habit. People just think that that's what you do, and so they make that assumption. So that's the first thing. The second thing, what I realized was that often the more fruitful conversations came from sending a quick voice note or sending a quick message, because you can convey your point and they have a chance to metabolize it, take it in, synthesize it, and then formulate a more articulate response. And so I actually found that very often I preferred getting that from people because I could take what they're saying. If I needed to go do a little bit of research, I did. Or if I needed to kind of synthesize some thoughts around it, I would. And then I would respond. And almost always, the quality of the conversation is so much better. It's so much better. So I would tell you that that type of approach can be quite useful. Because what you'll find is that people are not very intentional. They're very frenetic. They're quite frantic. I would even argue a lot of people are quite pedantic. You know, they have that sort of OCD, overthinking, perfectionist mindset. And I found that in and of itself is a barrier to someone getting healthier. And so what you need to be thinking about is you need to be setting clear standards and clear boundaries with people at the front end. That's one of the things that I found that I didn't do well early on. I wasn't clear about what they should expect. And I've had to learn that the hard way. Because if you're not clear about, hey, this is the way I communicate, this is what you can expect from me, they'll basically superimpose their expectations into you. And so that's that whole concept around the frame. If you want everyone around you to elevate and to perform at a higher level, you want to try to bring your frame to the party as much as possible. Now, obviously, if you're in a room with people that are mentors with you or ahead of you and you want to learn from them, then yes, submit to their frame to learn how they operate. But I often find that if I don't take my frame and make that the dominant frame in the room, that I find that like everyone's disjointed, no one really knows what they're doing, and everyone's just kind of wheel spinning. And so I almost think to myself, okay, if I can help people think more coherently and be more organized with the way they communicate, they're going to get better results. They're going to get better results. And obviously, it's up to them if they want to actually participate in getting better results or not. That's the thing. You can clearly articulate your boundaries with people. You cannot control the way they choose to respond. And so I remind myself of that too. That I might say something to people, and one person might be completely fine with it and respect it and actually like it. The other person might get offended. You are not responsible for someone else's offense. And that's one of the things that I found as people pleasers, you have to work very, very hard at managing. Because when I didn't do that, that's when I'd be hitting burnout every day. Now, the first thing that I will tell you is part of realizing that this is so important is like having your own structured axe sharpening routines that you implement first to get yourself in a better psychological and physiological state. Now, what this means is, for example, for me, I won't check my messages first thing in the morning. Like, I don't go into email. I don't go check my text messages. I don't check my Facebook messages or my Instagram messages first thing in the morning. I don't. I will consume my good content that I learn from. I have my axe sharpening processes. Because you've got to think to yourself, if you want to set the energetic tone of your day by being reactive and frenetic, go just onto social media without intention and just start consuming whatever's in your new timeline. And just start jumping into your messages and just consuming what everyone else is saying to you. That will set the energetic tone for your day. And you wonder why you're feeling anxious. You're feeling anxious because most people are anxious, and the stuff they post is anxiety driven. They even speak anxiously when they're communicating to you. And then you're inadvertently going in and checking your messages and checking your news feed first thing in the morning to physiologically shape your psychology around being anxious and reactive and frenetic. And so I turn off all my push notifications. There's people that I know, for example, in some of the apps that I use, I can see when they're listening to my response. There will be some people that will literally listen to my response as I'm sending it, which tells me they have the push notifications turned on, which tells me they have push notifications turned on for probably everything else too. That is a recipe for high anxiety and OCD and frenetic tension. So I turn off all the push notifications, but I do have blocked out time where I go in like a SWAT team intentionally to check those connection points. So that's the most important thing. You've got to at least remember to do that. So early on, I tell people, set some alarm reminders. Set alarm reminders to jump in, check your Facebook groups, your mastermind groups, respond to, just check your email at a certain time. But what I would tell you is you must get your state elevated first. And so what it looks like is like the transmission of a vehicle. When you wake up first thing in the morning, if you're anything like me, you feel like a bit sort of neutral. You're kind of in the lobby of your mind. It's not bad, but it's not good. And you're definitely not in a place where you're going to be solving big life's problems at that point. And you don't want to be taking on someone else's reactive energy, especially if they're someone that you're trying to mentor or help or provide a service to. because they're coming to you to elevate to your level. They're not coming to you so you can descend down to theirs. And so you need to have that awareness at all times. Now, for example, for me, I will get on my walking pad, I will walk. I actually get out when the sun is up in the morning, 8 or 9 o'clock, I'll get out and I'll walk outside. I'll get sun on the skin, sun in the eyes. I'll drop my morning mindset messages into my course group. And often I find that helps me too, because I'm thinking about a proactive, positive message, and I'm articulating that message in like a flow state. And so a lot of what I will do is I'll get myself into these flow states and then I coach. That's a big reason why I don't have a lot of set times where I have direct interaction with people. I won't have a specific call time for most people. I'll message them when I'm in that flow state. So I'll be going through the day and I'll literally pull levers. I jump on the air bike or I'll take a walk. I'll get outside in the light. I'll get sun on the skin. I do an Instagram or Facebook story where I'm talking about a specific mindset tactical tool. And I find just like regurgitating and articulating those tactics and tools elevates me into an even more higher functioning state. And then at that point, you feel confident. You feel like you have clarity. You feel like you have that momentum. You feel like you have flow. And then you go deliver that energy to the people around you. You go deliver that energy to your family. You go deliver that energy to your team. You go deliver that energy to your clients. Now, I realize it can't always work that way. A lot of the time with your family, you're just going to have to try to do your best. But don't set the bar so low that you think, I can't do that. I would be saying, how can I get my axe sharpening routines in multiple times through the day to get myself in a good state where I can be a better leader? And so I tell my people, I'm like, look, you're not going to hear from me first thing in the morning. And, even if I have people that will come to me and they will send you a message and then you don't respond right away and then they send a question mark or something, I will literally say to them, look, I will respond, but I time block my responses, so just wait till you hear from me. You have to say stuff like that. That's being confrontational. Because if you let people knock on your door repeatedly or just keep peppering you with messages, they're going to bring their frame to your party. And that frame looks like anxiety. It looks like being a manic person. And you do not want that. Most people, they're well-intentioned, but they're so used to being people pleasers and they're so used to being reactive and putting out fires. They think this is normal. I've come into this sort of professional space recognizing how detrimental that approach is to someone's health. That reactive, frenetic energy where you're just fire hosing your focus all over the place. All the biggest high performers that I see, they are very, very intentional with where their focus goes. And so they will intentionally have time to go check their text messages. They'll intentionally have time to check their emails. They don't just have all the notifications popping off and they're in the middle of shooting a video and then they get pulled off to a text message. They do not operate that way. You can have some people that are successful financially that are very reactive and they respond very quickly. But if you look at a lot of the other areas of their life, they're not doing great. They might be doing decent in the financial aspect, but they usually a fat Ferrari owner. And even if they're not that bad, they're definitely not where they could be. They're definitely not where they could be. So I say this because the feedback people get, what would you say? People get feedback where they'll see some success in their business because they're putting out fires and they're being very reactive and responsive. And so they almost get rewarded for that financially. So then in your mind, you start to map out this reinforcement pattern of, when I'm super reactive and I'm messaging people back and forth real quick and just breaking my focus, I'm going to make the sale. Or I'm going to get the person that outcome. And that just doesn't work long-term when it comes to health. You have to play a longer-term game when it comes to your health and psychology. Otherwise, you will be one of those people in their 40s and 50s that just starts to burn out. Heart attacks, strokes, autoimmune diseases. You just feel like garbage. And I always think to myself, your health has to be the high tide that rises all ships. It has to be. Because if you aren't operating that way, you will be forever being reactive and frenetic. And it is just such a stressful place to be when you're in that zone. And remember, your body reflects your boundaries. So if you are overweight and you don't feel great, it's more than likely because you've been so reactive, you're not consistent with your training, you've been so reactive, so you're not consistent with the way that you eat, the emotional eating kicks in. But beyond that, a lot of the physiological things that happen in the body, your cortisol goes up, your adrenaline goes up. Those are very catabolic hormones. It breaks down testosterone. That in and of itself affects muscle mass. And so you start to de-optimize your physiology on a chemical level. It's not very often I see someone who's in really, really good shape, but they're super reactive and frenetic. You do get the odd outlier, but it's not common. And they won't feel good. They'll just look good, but they won't feel good. There's a difference. Your nervous system will speak to you. And like I said, it speaks to you in the form of your digestion. It speaks to you in the form of you being able to just relax. Where is your resting heart rate? Is your resting heart rate high? Is your heart rate variability low? If those things are true, that's your physiological cue that something's not right. Like I said, you've got to remember, leadership is a frame. It is a frame, like to set standards, to set those clear intentions of when people can expect to hear from you, of what you're willing to do. You know, I tell people, you will never be able to get a hold of me while I'm working out. That workout time is my sacred time, non-negotiable. I'm not answering any calls, unless it was like some emergency with my family. It's not happening. And that is a non-negotiable that I have, and that ensures that I don't get interrupted while I'm training, and then someone brings a stressful situation to me, and then I have to stop because they are making me reactive. That's how you get inconsistent with your training. At certain times of the day, I tell people, I'm not going to be doing coaching calls and webinars and things at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. At 5 p.m., I'm done to have dinner and connect with my family, and we wind down. I'm not going to be burning the candle at both ends. It doesn't matter the opportunity. I refuse to do that because I see the effect, the emotional effect it has on you with your family. When you prioritize that connection point with them at the end of the day, that's more valuable than you know. It's more valuable than you know. And so I would tell you that notifications on your phone, the speed at which you react and respond to people's messages from you, the things that you are willing to do. If someone says, hey, can I jump on the phone to pick your brain? I absolutely will not do that. Because you might think that's okay to do when you are talking to 1 or 2 people a day. But at a certain point when you're dealing with tens and tens and tens of people, you will lose all your time to just talking to other people, and you won't have any time for yourself or your family. So you need to think and act from that place now. I even tell people, I'm like, look, if you want to talk to me, I have a consult fee. It's going to be $1,000. And we can roll that over to a coaching option that you want. So if you talk to me and we have that conversation and you do want to get some mentoring, we'll prorate that over to the mentoring. Because my time is very valuable to me. And you need to think the same way for you. Have higher standards for yourself. Recognize that your time is freaking finite. It's very precious to you. And so for that reason, you need to hold it to the highest regard. And I think, like I've mentioned, when you're interacting and dealing with people, just being clear and calm about what to expect from you Don't bring it emotionally charged. Don't bring drama. Just bring clarity, calm clarity. I tell people when they can expect to hear from me. I tell people how often I check my contacts each day. I will communicate with people what I'm willing to do and not do. One of the things that I do with Lauren, my wife, is on a Sunday we'll map out our week. And we'll sit down and we'll talk about what do we have on this week? What appointments, what things do we have that we have to address? And we map it all out. And if there's something that wants to come into that week that's not urgent, that's not an immediate family urgent thing, it will get pushed off to the following week. And so if someone wants to meet up, or if someone wants to do something, I will often schedule it in the following week. Because the people that I see get the best results, they're very, very intentional with the way they block time. And they do it from a place of there is a consequence and a flow-on effect to everything that you do. So if you just make exceptions and you're going out to have lunch with so-and-so and you're getting off to do X, Y, and Z, there is a downstream effect to that. And you have to be willing to weigh that up and say, okay, if I'm going to go do this thing with X, Y, and Z, will I be able to get my workout in later? Or do I need to position my workout at a different time of day? How's that going to affect my meal timing with my family? Will that affect the podcast interviews that I need to do? What other things, what other targets am I striving towards that will have a negative impact on? Because you can't just think of that decision as a compartmentalized thing. Everything has a butterfly effect. Everything has a flow-on effect. I've actually found that when you get more intentional about your boundaries with people, they actually respect you more, ironically enough. And the people that don't, they will fall away anyway. It's almost like you've got to think of it as a litmus test. And what I would also tell you is that you will get more support and you will have more people believe and listen to you when you back it up with your own results. See, people listen to me at this point now because of the results that I have. Now, early on, you may not have that track record yet, but you have to start somewhere. You must start somewhere. And so just backing yourself, thinking about, I want to be confrontational because I need to bring my frame to this interaction so I can give them more of my result, more of what I know, more of my calm, intentional energy. Right? Because if you don't do that, what happens? That reactive, firefighting energy takes over. And you got to remember that your energy, your bandwidth, it's a finite asset. I always think about this. It's a finite asset where if you are just saying yes to every single thing just because you want to be polite, you end up burning out and then you get sick. I've had a number of friends in the past that do this. They're great at this. They end up doing all kinds of weird and wonderful things for people that they really didn't want to do, but they just wanted to be polite. And then what happens is they get all disorganized, their sleeping routine gets thrown off, and they just start dropping the ball everywhere. And then they get sick. And I'm like, this is the consequence. This is the flow-on effect of when you just don't have clear boundaries with people. And so I've really had to master this when it comes to mentoring and coaching people at a high level. Because people will inadvertently try to, I don't even want to say take advantage of you because it's not intentional, but they will definitely try to run the show if you let them. I'm at the point now where if someone that wants to talk to me hasn't fulfilled certain obligations, like if I need to see some of their data, if I need to see some of their meals and some of their tracking, and they're like, hey, can I talk to you on the phone? I'm like, until I see that data from you, having a conversation on the phone is a waste of time. And I actually say that. And this is coming from a reformed people pleaser. But I say it from just a place of being calm and confident. And so what I often find is that if you feel like your message may not be received well, send it as a quick 30 to 60 second audio message. They can hear your calmness. They can hear your concern. They can hear the sensitivity in your voice while you're still being clear. There's something about that feeling that I think adds a lot of weight to your message. And sometimes you've got to be even clear with like the duration of a call or the duration of voice messages. I've had people before start to message me and they'll send me, 8 and 9 and 10-minute audio messages. And I even say to them, I'm like, look, if I'm talking to 50 to 100 people a day and they all sent me 8, 9, and 10-minute audio messages, do you think I'd be able to do anything? So I just kind of help them become aware of that variable, because often people are not thinking about that. They're not malicious. You just need to help people understand what's up, what's going on. You becoming more intentional with your boundaries, you bringing that calm, strong, clear energy, that's what we need more of in society, I believe. I feel like there's a real lack of that calm, strong, masculine energy. And we see it in the way the world is working. We see it in the way people operate and react. All the frenetic behavior, all the firefighting, right? So you absolutely must turn off push notifications to your phone for everything. You absolutely must make sure you set alarm reminders to go in and check the things you need to check, because you still are obligated and you want to stay consistent with that. You must help people understand that you're sharpening your axe first so you can get in the best energetic state possible to then be that better version of yourself for them. And you have to not bait into people's reactivity and energy. Let them have that state. That state's for them, it's not for you. So I share this with you today, a shorter one, because I feel like you're people-pleasing. And when I say you, I mean people in general. The people-pleasing and the reactivity is costing you. It's costing you. And it means that sometimes you're going to have challenging conversations with people. It means at times you're going to have to illuminate things that feel obvious to you, but people just overlook them. I've said it to people before where they'll come into a certain coaching level and they want the Lamborghinis. They want to get the Lamborghini, but for the price of a Tesla. So they come in, they want X, Y, and Z for me to help them with that. And I'm like, and they'll send me emails. And I'll say, look, the reality is that the level that you're in at, you get that group access, you get X, Y, and Z. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you about A, B, and C, but you do realize that's my high-level one-on-one. So we can have a conversation about that if you would like. So rather than like bending over backwards and then over-delivering and then setting that tone and making that the standard, that's the worst thing you can do. Is you come in and then you feel obligated to do X, Y, and Z. You do it. You don't actually communicate it to them. And then they think that's a normal part of the process. So now not only do they expect you to do it more often again, but you're already breaking your own rules by doing things that go beyond the boundaries that you've set. And that's what leads to so much resentment, and that's what leads to burnout. You've got to recognize that people come to you because they want a specific result in a certain area, or they need some type of leadership. And it's a moral obligation in your life to bring that strong, coherent frame so you can help them be part of that high tide rising all ships. So there you have it, guys. We can talk about tactics all day long. We can talk about all these different things. But your ability to manage your state, your ability to block out the distraction, your ability to sharpen your axe every single day and be very clear about what people should get from you, that's a skill, and it's a skill worth practicing, and it's a skill worth mastering. And I promise you, if you do that, it's going to be so life-changing for you, and you will see people around you get better results. They will respect you more. They'll take you more seriously. They'll take your time. They'll be more appreciative of your time. This is life's work, man. This is not the easy stuff. The easy stuff is just doing the opposite to this. The easy stuff is just going, but I just want to give a good service. I just want to make people happy. You keep telling yourself that, and at a certain point, you'll get into so much pain that you'll be forced to change. That's what happened to me. I essentially started to have like nervous breakdowns because of how much I was bending over backwards for people because I wanted to please everyone. And all it did was make myself miserable. So I say this from firsthand experience, guys. Go out there, focus on all the pillars we talk about, but be very, very clear about your boundaries, your frame. Sharpen your axe every day first. Get yourself in that higher functioning state first. Don't get baited into reactive stuff on social media. Be in and out like a SWAT team. Set those alarms. Be intentional. Bring that calm, clear energy with you. That's what the world needs more of. More of that calm, clear, lighthouse energy. And that's what it looks like to be a true business athlete.